Hey guys, welcome back to Faith and Fire, God and Country with your host Branden LaNette. Hello, hello. Listen, it's I always say I'm tired, but I'm actually recording kind of early today. It's just been a really long day. We're still afternoon. I'm pretty proud of myself. I figured it was going to be another midnight night. It might still be. We have softball games, but I want to share this with you guys. For those of you that have been following, you know that my son has been doing a lot of things to get into the Marines. Okay, a lot of things. Had to do quite a few things for him to qualify with his specific situation. Um, Wild thing happened. Okay, if you guys follow me on social media, you already saw the paperwork. We signed the contract today. However, 24 hours from before we signed that contract, uh, my son's recruiter called him and said, "This isn't going to work out." There was a little misunderstanding about the final year he was actually in high school, and he said, "I'm sorry, maybe you can join the army." And when I tell you guys, my husband and I were just talking about this before he left for work today. My son was born to be a Marine. There, I mean, since he was a child, like this was his thing. This is his thing. God has a mission for him. He knows his calling. He's stewarding the mission. And when I saw like his face just drain yesterday, um, part of my mama heart, I was like, okay, like it's over because he's not going to join the army. That means my baby's not going into the military, right? So there's a part of my mama heart where I'm like, thank God. And then I see my son, and I didn't feel that at all. I thought, what the hell do I have to do to make this happen for him? Who do I have to call? Who do I have to talk to? What hoops do we have to drum? I will do whatever it takes to help him get through. So I was on the phone all day yesterday. And I just want to say I checked my phone before we started recording here. Just I was curious. I left at least 7 voicemails around my area, and I made way more phone calls than I left voicemails. Not one single person has called me back. So we go through this process. My son is so bummed. He literally goes into the living room, into the recliner, and he just goes to sleep. Like he is done. He's done. I didn't even know what to think. I genuinely knew I had to do something. And so I'm on the phone all day yesterday. I actually go live on TikTok last night for the first time in a year. And my phone rings and I realize it's his recruiter. And I'm like, holy shit, it's kind of late. Like, what happened? I answer the phone and he's like, Miss Branden, yes, sir. I have some really great news that I think your son should hear from you. Um, the big boss signed off on the misunderstanding and said it wasn't a thing. So I'm like, it's not a thing. He said it's not a thing. He's good to go. Can you sign paperwork in the morning? And I'm like, you're serious. Like we can sign. It's good. So yeah, I got to go wake up my son and tell him the news, and tears of joy. Like, I mean, I it was a beautiful moment that I got to share with him. So it was a really interesting experience this morning. Um, Again, you guys, he's wanted to be Marine for forever. It is that branch specifically, that commitment. Um, and I guess anyone who really knows anything about the Marine Corps knows that's not an accident. You don't accidentally want to be a Marine. Okay. You are called to this the same way you're called to anything that God puts you through. Um, Walking this process with him, you know, it's crazy. And yesterday, in my broken mama heart, I gave everything to God. And the minute I do that, where I'm like, I did what I could, I called who I could, I'm at the mercy of them calling back, and just, is there anything that can happen for this to work out? The fact he calls, we walk in that office this morning, you know, um, it was amazing. And I'm super proud of myself because I didn't lose it. I mean, I definitely teared up several times. Okay. It is emotional. There is so much, just even in that office, even with his recruiter. I mean, I cannot explain the energy. It is beautiful. It is patriotic. It is a gift from God. And I just I'm in awe of all of that, and I'm looking at my son, and I see this wall of the recruiters guys that he has on, and I'm like, they're all just babies. And so in that moment there was just that letting go of, like, he's not going to be the baby anymore. Like, he's literally in the next couple months going to just be a whole ass man, you know. What came through for me? This was a day I had no answer from my son. If this really wasn't going to work out, I had nothing to say to him. No solution, no offer. I just watched, his dreams disappear. Um, I didn't do this. This was God. God made the phone call. And the door that was closed at 9 a.m. was open last night. Isaiah 22:22 says that what he opens, no one can shut. What he shuts, no one can open. And I'm not here, obviously, just to quote scripture at you. I'm here to tell you, like, I watched this happen in real time in my house. So I guess this is to say, first of all, thank you guys, those of you that have prayed for us and for him. The journey's on. If you've been staring at something that looks like a closed door today, I just need you to know what I know. The God who opened a door for my son last night is the same God who sees whatever you're facing, and he's not done. Okay. So, to the show, you guys, thanks for letting me get that out. I appreciate you guys so much, truly. I want to run through some headlines with you that I think you need to know about. Some of this is getting buried, of course, and your mainstream feed is not going to show it to you. Other stuff that is really, I don't know, you guys want me talking about that? Like the stuff that is just right there in front of our faces. I don't know if that's a cool topic because it's just there. The media wants you to know it. They're force feeding you. There's me repeating that. But I will say there's something that I didn't see on mainstream news. That is Patel. I was down on him for a very long time, and I wouldn't say I'm like wholeheartedly backpedaling. I'm still weary, but he's come through. He's come through on some shit. Um, in 1 year under President Trump, you guys, and this is what Patel was sharing with us. The FBI arrested 40,000 violent criminals. I'm telling you, these are percentages you can actually fact check and look it up. That is a 112% increase from 2024. Total arrests were closer to 80,000. But his point, and this is the right point, is that if this happened under a Democrat president, it'd be the only thing that the media is talking about. It would be everywhere. It'd be every broadcast. It would be every headline every day. But because it's happened under Trump, it gets a blip in a scroll. A 112% increase in violent crime arrests in 1 year. You guys, that is not a political talking point. That is not someone blowing smoke up our ass about getting them elected. That's a result. And then Colorado, I'm not sure if I talked about this already. And honestly, this show needed to get done. So if it is a repetition, then you guys could call me out on that. But we've got in Colorado 4 Democrats: Adrian Benavides, Nick Henriksen, I think, Katie Wallace, Mike Weissman. Um, those four fools voted to block a bill that would require mandatory jail time for people convicted of raping a child. They blocked mandatory jail time for child rapists. Those are their names. That is their vote. And I feel like everybody deserves to know who they are, because how are we walking among these people, and how would they get votes to secure any sort of power in an office? You guys are losing your ever loving minds. Ever loving minds. In DC, you know, Washington, DC, good old DC, multiple police leaders are facing termination. some of them tied to an investigation into manipulated crime data. Okay. Meaning the crime statistics the city of Washington, D.C. reported to the public were manufactured. Okay. If your leaders are lying about how safe the city is, every single policy built on those numbers is built on a lie. Every single one. The DOJ launched investigations into 36 Illinois school districts for secretly pushing gender ideology and facilitating gender transitions on minors without parental knowledge or consent. Have I said this on the show before? Homeschool your kids. Homeschool your kids. 36 districts, you guys. Not one, not five or six, a whole handful. 36. And it's now a federal investigation. Homeschool your kids. Social media influencer, some guy named Craig. Okay, because this story is to be told because it's not just one, it's a lot of them. He was arrested in a human trafficking sting in Polk County, Florida. Tampa confirmed it. A man with a platform, big audience. I keep saying it because I keep meaning it. Pay attention to who has access to children and who is separated while having it. For my Michigan people, uh, some of y'all are choked up on the gas, but I was putting $5.10 in my tank a couple years ago, so I'm a little desensitized. Um, Again, another conversation. I really need to go down the rabbit hole of gas prices, but our state, okay, throws on a whopping tax that just got raised. So whatever everybody else may be paying, our little choke is is at the tax thing. Yay, Whitmer. But anyway, okay, my Michigan people. There is actually a judge, okay, ordered Secretary of State Jocelyn. And I want to say this was actually a Whitmer appointed judge. So someone's probably going to be in trouble. Someone's going to be in trouble. Ordered Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson to stop withholding critical voting data from the public. And the Michigan Senate race is heating up. I just checked the stats on that. Mike Rogers is leading Abdul Saved. The seat is flippable. That race matters so much for us, and I am telling you guys to pay attention. I don't care how exhausted you are from politics. I don't give a shit what the gas prices are. I'm saying the decisions we make today are going to shape what happens over the next couple of years. Don't we see that now? A lot of times we didn't show up to the voting polls. A lot of times we didn't vote for those policies. And then what happened? The world went haywire. And now we have teachers who have no idea if they're a man or a woman teaching your babies, putting them through sex changes and gender ideologies. Like that's what happens when we're not showing up. Please pay attention to that race because your vote, I promise your vote matters. I found a map of, pediatric gender clinics we went from a handful of these, okay? Cuz it's this mission has been out for a while. A handful of those in 2007 to literally hundreds blanketing the country in 2022. And now I just want to say 2026 that has backed down significantly. That was not an accident. That happened because we used our voices, because we talked about policies, because people got loud and refused to shut up. Results are possible. Do not be a useful idiot and do not stop using your voice. This is your platform. This is your platform. And I really want to ask some questions because, this is the place where we're allowed to do that. Okay. I really want to ask these questions. These Epstein files, we've had them for a really long time and no one has released them. Okay. No one. Like they had chances to release them long before Trump was president. Um, and I mean, they acknowledge that there's 6 million pages in these documents, right? They release half of that, like 3.5 million, or, I don't know. There's like 2 million pages that have not been released. Okay. Faulty redactions in what they did release accidentally exposed things that they tried to black out. A note that Epstein allegedly wrote that said time to say goodbye has still not been made public despite all of the so-called transparency. Hillary Clinton called it a continuing cover-up. And I'm just asking, like, what is in those other pages? And how come no other administration even attempted to release the files? And how come a lot of this still isn't public? I don't have the answer. It is a genuine, I really want to know. And conspiracy brains, like you guys help me fill in the blanks. I don't care what your theory is. I just want to hear your theory because it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me, not as much as they have exposed, not as much truth is out there. The world's desensitized, right? I mean, I told you guys you're eating humans at McDonald's, and where do I see your asses? In the drive through, right? So, like, desensitized. I don't know. And in a congressional hearing, Lauren Boebert asked directly, are aborted baby parts being implanted into lab animals? And the response, you guys, desensitized. The response on the record was that over 90% of those experiments were funded by Fauci's NIAID. I didn't make that up. That's not something I'm asking for you guys to fill in the blanks. Okay. That was congressional testimony. And my question is again, like, how did we allow this to happen? How long has it been happening? Who approved it? Is this why we're celebrating abortion? Because they need the body parts? And why is it not public matter, but we had to get into a congressional hearing for that truth to come out? And I see, I mean, useful idiots. Like, that is really just, I'm so confused. Only other thing I really saw in the news today. Okay. No, there's a couple funny memes I saw, but the Met Gala. Okay. I don't think I've ever in my life to date ever watched it. Uh I don't think I've ever watched any of that shit. Like any of the award shows or Emmys or the Grammys. Like I just have never been that person. But Met Gala every year. Um it is just dark imagery. And the themes just keep getting stranger. And I feel like the costumes are just more deliberate. Like I'm not saying I know what happens behind closed doors, but I'm going to ask this question. When a culture with this much documented connection to Jeffrey Epstein, to trafficking arrests, to cover ups at the highest levels, when that culture keeps putting the same symbols on the red carpet year after year and they call it fashion, are we wrong to notice? Are we wrong to ask what they're truly celebrating? I said when I started the show I wanted to go down the rabbit hole of Q. I haven't really done that. I flirted with it a little bit. But like I want to talk about them because this is part of their belief. Everything is a show, everything is scripted. I've always been curious. And I'm not one to take everything at face value. Um I don't believe every drop without question. You know, sometimes some of what was said, like it really does start to match up. Some of what was said years ago, it has shown up in headlines. The timing is weird. Mass trafficking arrests, federal investigations into people nobody thought would ever be launched or touched, documents being forced into the open that were supposed to stay buried forever. And what if there was a group of people inside the system who were actually trying to expose it from the inside, going up against like 1,000-year-old elite devil worshipping pedophile freaks that have protected themselves for so long? What if? What does that change about how we read about what's happening right now? I genuinely don't know the answer to that question, but I think the act of asking it, the possibility of that, I think Q gave a lot of people hope when they had very little. And hope that keeps people paying attention is not nothing. I mean that. I love that people are finding the connections. I love that people are getting fired up and saying this was a code, this was a signal. Because if we're paying attention, that's how accountability happens. So I'm saying, what if they were real? Because a lot of this just is kind of everything they've already told us is happening. Okay. So what they told us that is happening. I did, you guys, I did see a funny meme last night. or maybe it was this morning when I was checking headlines for content. I told you human humans in the meat, right? There is a headline right now, and I didn't even go down the rabbit hole to see if it's true, but there where they said there were human bodies found at a McDonald's meat packer. Um, Again, I didn't verify it, but you guys, it's out there. Like people know. It's the same thing like the ticks I told you about, right? That are going to make you allergic to all of the um, meat products, mammalian products. Anything that comes from a mammal is potentially going to make you viciously sick or kill you. And now they're finding boxes of ticks on farms. I did see another headline for that too. Another guy found a literal box full of ticks on his farm. Like someone just airdropped it. Okay. Uh, my husband and I, something else I really wanted to talk about today. We watched a documentary about, I can't remember the name of the show. Awful. I should have looked it up first, but um it was about a sovereign citizen and his son, and they both ended up dead. And I kind of couldn't stop thinking about it because they did good with the show in that they humanized everybody. Okay. And so I kind of wanted to do some research today and try to break this down because I think for myself it's worth understanding. Like you guys have seen them, talk about this. It's been on the news, they've been in the headlines. Like what is a sovereign citizen? What do they actually believe, and does it connect to the Bible? And so what I found in my research is that a sovereign citizen is someone who believes they are not subject to government jurisdiction, and they argue that through specific legal language, right? They have specific filings. This was in the movie, specific declarations, they call them. And they exist outside the legal system. They refuse to pay taxes, which, I mean, we all should do a little of that. They reject court authority. Again, our court system sucks. They don't register vehicles. And I mean, it's crazy to me. I own my car and I'm still paying almost $300 to have tags on it every year. But like I own the car, but I still have to pay the government for owning the car. It's kind of crazy to me. Same thing like our house, right? We pay taxes on the value, even though we haven't put money into it. It's just all crazy to me. So anyway, there's some stuff to this that made me super curious. But sovereign citizens operate from the belief that the government has no legitimate claim over them as an individual. Some people come to this from genuine philosophical conviction. Some come from desperation. Okay. And I feel like in this movie, what happened, it was based on a true story. Okay. I really feel like this man was desperate. Okay. And I see that he came from desperation, but he felt like the system had failed them so completely that they stepped outside of it entirely. And some people end up in confrontations with law enforcement that apparently turn deadly, and that's where it gets interesting. Okay, because I'm looking and I'm researching, and the Bible does not give me a simple answer here. And I'm just going to be honest about that. It could be the season I'm in. God talks to us and says what we need to hear, what we need to know. I could not get a very simple answer. And I'll share with you some of the things that make sense to me. Like Romans 13:1 says, every person is to be subject to governing authorities because there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. That's a hard verse for a lot of people right now, right? Because we look at our government and we see the corruption and we see the lies and we see the people in power doing things that are absolutely against God. And we ask, how are we supposed to submit to that? Right? But then Acts 5:29, Peter and the apostles stood before the authorities who told them to stop preaching Christ. And they said, we must obey God rather than man. And then Revelation 13 describes a beast system, a government so aligned with evil, so antichrist in its nature that faithfulness to God requires resistance, not submission. So which is it, right? If you read that, you read those verses for yourself. What is it? Submit or resist? And this is what I believe. The answer I really feel like is discernment. And the early church submitted to Rome on almost everything. They paid their taxes, you guys. They followed civil law. They didn't run from authority. But when Rome told them to deny Christ, they refused. And they died for that refusal. And their deaths built the church. The distinction scripture makes is not between good government and bad government. The distinction is between what the government is requiring of you. Does it require you to violate your conscience before God? If it does, then the answer would be clear, would it not? You resist. Or does it simply inconvenience you or restrict you in ways you don't like? Because that's not the same thing. And that's not biblical grounds for declaring yourself outside of the system. Recently, I got a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. I didn't blame him. It is the law. I don't agree with the law. I think it's stupid. Again, I own my car. Don't tell me how I have to use it. Thought it was ridiculous. Still paid the ticket. Okay. Was super respectful. I absolutely understand cops are doing their job. I have mad respect for them, especially in this season. I didn't agree with it, but I followed the rules. And I feel like the same thing is kind of set for our taxes. Now, a lot of truth has come out where that money is going. Okay. And I think that is a part where we need to figure out that resistance. How do we resist that? Federal taxes shouldn't even have been put upon us. That should be something that we snuff out completely. And I think we would all be pretty happy paying our local and state taxes if there was full transparency on where the money's going. I'm super happy, not happy, that Whitmer has quite a few slush funds. Yes, I know about that as well, but I haven't done the research, so I won't say more than that. She's no different than the daycares or the whatever's going on in California, the healthcare places. She's got the same shit going on here. So anyway, the sovereign citizen movement, okay, at the core rejects all authority on principle. And that, I'm going to be honest, it really does break from scripture there, because Romans 13 doesn't say submit when the government is good. It says submit because all authority ultimately flows from God and he is sovereign over even the corrupt systems of men. What did he do, you guys? He uses Pharaoh. You remember Pharaoh. He uses him. He uses Babylon. He uses Caesar. And that doesn't mean those rulers were righteous. It means God's purpose cannot be stopped by human corruption. And the tragedy in that film is a tragedy I understand. A man who watched the system fail him so completely that I stopped believing it had any claim on his life. I get it. God, who would not understand that right now? You look at what our government does, and I feel that pull. But the answer is not to declare yourself outside the system, right? It is to declare yourself under a higher authority. Not using the Bible as a weapon, but getting behind God and his armor and using it truthfully. There's an authority that the government can't touch, they can't take, and they can't corrupt, no matter how much they try, because there is only one king. His kingdom does not require paperwork, and no court, no law, no recruiter, no closed door, right? Has jurisdiction over what he has already ordained for your life. And I guess this is a perfect place to close where I started. And I know today was kind of short, but I have two softball games for my girls today that I have to get to. So I just thank you guys for bearing with me and being flexible, and just, I appreciate you so much. But I let's close where I started. I think it's literally the same thing. My son wanted to be a Marine. The door closed. God made the phone call. Today, the world feels like a lot of closed doors. It feels like a lot of cover ups, a lot of corruption, a lot of headlines that make you want to step outside the whole system entirely and say, forget it, I'm done. Let me say this: this life is so beautiful. I am not done. I don't think you are either. We are still here. Get off your social media. Stop watching the news. Stop looking for the headlines. Let me help you through the process. Stop getting yourself fired up. Stop letting your algorithm decide how you're going to feel today. That's not, I mean, my gosh. I watch my husband, his algorithm just makes him angry every single day. And I'm like, why? Why? Isn't it exhausting? What you focus on is everything you're ever going to see. You guys, we are still here. We are in our life. We have beautiful families and beautiful homes and beautiful potential, beautiful country, beautiful nature. We have all of these things. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're still asking questions. We're still in the arena. We're still in the fight. We're still holding the line on the shit that matters: our kids, our faith, our country, our voices. And I serve a God who made a phone call last night and changed everything. So please, I am telling you, just stay curious. Stay in the Word. Open your Bible and stay fired up for this. I know who wins in the end.